should always treat yourself as an investment for sure.
Yeah, unfortunately, most people do not. They
Mhm.
say it, but they don't do it. That's the unfortunate
Right.
part.
And I think that I had finally gotten to, that point of wanting to break that cycle. And I was just fed up. I was like, everything I'm doing is not working. I need to try something different, like doing a webinar or like a single book that's
Yeah.
just kind of like it's not gonna do, it's not gonna help,
No,
you're just
no.
reading.
Yeah, it's like I just got off the phone with someone who's like again on the webinar track and just just like I can't spend a lot of time on those calls. It's like they just don't seem to get it. I'll try to push them, point them to the insanity of what they're doing, but
Mm-hmm.
they just haven't. To be honest, they just haven't had enough pain yet. Eventually,
Yeah.
pain is one of our biggest teachers, and at a
Mm-hmm.
certain point, when you've had enough of it, you have to come full circle and just face to face with it. Clearly, something is not working. And so when you and I intersect, that obviously was the case to some degree, where you're like, you know what, I'm tired of not getting the result I really want
Yeah.
ultimately. So let me ask you this way here, listen, so what brought you my way? If you were going to describe your situation, what made you say, you know what, I need to do something? What was that? What was that? Yeah, what was it that brought you my way? What was the situations like? I need to do something here. And
I
again,
was
I'll edit.
being
I'll edit this later, by the way. So you talk about however you feel comfortable.
I mean, it was the ending of the relationship, but it was like realizing, it was the same thing that had happened before,
Mhm.
in majority of my relationships before that. What's the common denominator? It's like, I am
Mhm.
something's got to give, because it was like I caught myself, going back into like the same self sabotaging behaviors. And I was like, this is not doing me any favors.
Mhm.
I'm not doing, I'm just going into a vicious cycle again and again and again. And I'm like, I'm sick of it. I'm sick and tired of being, sick and tired, like not
Yeah, that's a
feeling
great
how
cliche.
I
Sick and tired of being
should.
sick and tired. Yeah.
So, I mean, and I remember when we first talked, I had said something and you were like, well, how did he make you feel when he walked away and made you feel like replaceable? And I was like, ooh, hard truth. But yes, in that instance, I was replaceable, and at this point, it's like, all right, well, if you feel that way, that's fine. I'll accept you where you're at. You go do your thing. I'm going to go do mine.
Yeah.
It is what it is. So, I mean, because I thought, he was quote unquote the one,
Right.
we had started to make plans, whatnot, and then it ended. And, with this program, I bounced back so much faster. I'm not hiding, in the bedroom with my pint of ice cream and like
Sure.
Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah. But because we had talked to, like, the data points are there. Like, look at it like a scientist,
Yeah.
just even myself, like, oh, wow, like, I'm not feeling nearly as bad as I would have before.
Yep.
I'm bouncing back quicker. I've looked at it as like moving the needle, progress, not
Yep.
perfection, cutting myself some slack, being human, allowing myself to feel, but not, sitting there too long. 2 minutes is too long. Like,
Yep.
catch myself to all the time. It's like, oh, it's automatic now. You know, as soon as I catch it, it's like, all right, I'm there, but we're not going to stay there. I refuse to stay there. And I think it was in one of your emails. You had written just being defiantly committed, and I was like, oh yeah, that resonates.
Mhm.
Because I'm stubborn, so I was like, I
Sure.
can get on board with that.
Wonderful. So let me ask you a question. So, okay. So I always appreciate when people first start the program. I mean, look, I can show them a zillion video testimonials. I can show them a lot of evidence and just things up the yin yang. But still, I always appreciate, there's still a level of, hey, you need to have a little faith here. It's like hiring a personal trainer. You have
Yeah.
human muscles. Your human muscles are going to have to respond in accordance with the stimulus you give it, right? Assuming you hit
Mhm.
those supporting elements like the nutrition, the rest. But we all know we have human muscles, and if we engage in a certain type of workout in a classic sense, we're going to move. But of course, even with that said, if you hire a personal trainer, there's still a certain amount of faith of, hey, does this person really know what they're doing and is going to get me the quickest, fastest way to where I want to go? There's still a little faith you still put in that person, no matter what their reputation happens to be. So my
Yeah.
next question would be, and I can appreciate you as well as anyone else who does this program. You had to do the same thing as well, putting a little faith
Mhm.
in me, the process, and say, hey, I'm gonna get there. I might as well go all in. I always tell people there's no room for skepticism here.
Yeah.
You don't want to dilute your fucking energy in skepticism. Just it's like in a classic workout sense. You don't want to go in the weight room and kind of be thinking in the back of your head, well, is this going to really work? You're just not going to put the same effort. So anyway, my
Yeah.
question is, I did ask you to do that. You did it. You did an awesome job. At what point during the process did you actually truly connect with, like the scientists, connect with, say, this is working. I can't dispute the evidence. I can't dispute. At what point, week 1, week 2, week 3, at what point did you know this is going to where I want to go? Like I cannot dispute the evidence. There's clearly something happening biologically.
I want to say it might have been, I think might have been like a week and a half, 2 weeks in. And because I remember I had talked to you that day because I had a training at work, and Catalyst was there because we worked together, awkward
Sure.
situation, but I was whatever. And I remember, one of the person in charge of the training, was calling me out, because I was just at a higher vibration. And, you were like, you live the slide, like when you feel like oneness. I was like, oh, wow, okay. Like, I was like, I didn't I? Like, so I was like, it's there. And I'm just gonna keep going. Like now that I'm
Your voice is there's something kind of interfering, like screaming, like static. I don't know what that is.
I don't know. Is that better?
I don't know. Maybe it's on my end. I don't know. But all of a sudden your voice started getting muffled, so I felt back as I couldn't hear that. But yeah, I think it's better now.
Okay, yeah, but living that slide, like when you feel like oneness, it was like that was like the moment I was like, oh, I am getting results. Like it's there. And then it was just like things kept going, getting picked for, different trainings at work and whatnot. Like, even people calling me out. I got called out. Within the first 2 or 3 weeks, I think it was a bunch of times at work, and people just wanting to be around me. Like,
Yeah.
You have this great energy. You're, making people smile and whatnot, like just making people laugh. Because I'm like, I'm here. It's fine. I feel good. So here, we can feel good together,
Wonderful. So it's about the week and a half point. That's when you knew something was indeed happening at a level that was not disputable. You had enough of that quote unquote, scientific evidence to say, hey, I can't ignore the data. Something is clearly shifting internally. So okay, awesome.
Yes.
And then that's so you kind of led into a really great question here. People, some people are really surprised when they see how much they really can accomplish in 6 weeks in a very tangible way. I mean, it's pretty fucking awesome. Where many of the Q&A calls, you're on those calls where people get promotions, different things at work. I mean, I got 2 people this week alone that showed me pictures of their engagement ring. One was like, I mean, both were completely not expected, and they recognize now it's like the reason why they never attracted really who they really wanted and who they deserved is because they didn't have these mechanisms in place, which you have. And if you're not able to keep away the people who are not good for you, I almost want to use other descriptors there. But if you don't have ways, mechanisms to keep away people who are not good for you, and then you allow those people to waste your time, your energy, well, what fucking energy is left for you to create the relationship of your dreams and spend it with the right people when the wrong people are just sucking that out from under you? And these people,
Exactly.
you can do them all of a sudden in a very real way. They have all that energy freed, reallocated, and that's why all of a sudden they met the right people. And they both happened really in a very unexpected way out of nowhere. But you can say in a very clear way, this is gonna be the same for you too, Alyssa. I guarantee something changes massively in that area within the next year. But in a very practical way, I want you to understand why that's gonna be. When you don't waste your time, when it is impossible to waste your time and energy with the wrong people, well, all that energy, which is real and as tangible can be, well, guess what? It goes to creating a life of your dreams and attracting the people of your dreams. But that's not foo-foo. That's just practical, because as human beings, we do have a finite amount of energy that's available to us in any given day. And if we don't have ways to protect that, then that's why we don't have the energy to get what we want. But when we have very clear, practical ways to do so, well, guess what? Now you meet the right people. You have the right circumstances. You get the right promotions. And again, it's really awesome because we've seen firsthand in the course many people come on the calls and like, oh my God, this just happened. Oh my God, that just happened. And
Mhm.
it's really not mystical. I mean, we could have a law of attraction kind of a conversation, of course, but in a very practical way, that's a real reallocation of energy. And that's why
Mhm.
you've been experiencing what you're experiencing. So on that note, what have been some of your biggest surprises over the last 6 weeks? In just 6 weeks, what have been some of your biggest surprises, maybe as far as people recognizing your differences, promotions at work, different opportunities at work? What have been some
Mhm.
of your biggest surprises you've experienced just within our time together?
Again, like just feeling amazing. Like I said, I was sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, just
Mhm.
run down and whatnot. And, with work and whatnot, with the challenging career choice,
Yep.
but just seeing when I started really focusing on myself and seeing how people began to approach me differently, work, even, I had done exactly what you said. Like it was awkward just because he and I worked together. But when I was just really focused on me and doing the best I can with work, being more present, he had started to approach me differently. But it was at the point where, I was like, we're cool, but we're only going to talk about work. Like anything else, I'm just not going to do that right now. I'm not ready. I don't think you're ready. So, I mean, you want to talk about work? We'll talk about work. Being able to effectively do that.
Yeah.
Like that wasn't something I would never have been able to do before. Would have been like, oh yeah, let's go do that. No, we're not gonna do that.
Yeah.
Like just sticking to it, really focusing on it, honing in, on what I needed to do, like getting more of that discipline because with the practice and stuff, like this is something I'm gonna keep doing, nonstop. Like you're not, catch myself boosting regardless of how I feel, just because it makes me feel good, you
Yeah,
know.
that's I mean that's game set match. That's the only reason. That's
Mhm.
the best reason to do it. And yeah, just that's everything. Everything people do at the end of the day is actually very simple to categorize. Everything everyone does action wise, they do it because they believe that action might take them closer to an outcome. They'll give them an excuse to feel good. But you get to cut
Mhm.
out the middleman because you don't have to do that anymore. You simply have
Right.
a process. You can feel great simply because you're conditioned that way, wired that way. That's just a whole different world. And that's what makes relationships completely differently because all of a sudden that other person you intersect with, that you meet, it's like they know you're good. You don't, and
Mhm.
you don't do things to compromise yourself. You don't say things you shouldn't be saying. You're just like, I'm just good. If we line up, fucking fantastic. If we don't, that's okay too. Either one is good.
Right.
But that's what makes people really attractive because it's like you're not hoping it works out. You're like, if it works out, that's great. If not, it's good too. If you can take
Mhm.
me further into bonus territory, fantastic. But make no mistake, I definitely don't need you to have a fucking amazing day. And
Right.
that's a whole different world. But yeah, as long as you
Mhm.
continue to do your practice, your process, you're literally every day exercising your independence from the external world, and that's the only place to live. That's the way we're supposed to live. Um, so let me ask you maybe one last question. This is good. One last question. So, how do you feel about your future now? Remember, and just anyone listening here, you don't know these questions in advance; they're very generic. But I'm just kind of
Mhm.
just asking you here. So I told you in the beginning of the program, I said, listen, when you and I are done, you'll know you'll never repeat the same shit ever again. It literally is impossible. Now, let me
Mhm.
preface that with this: I can't stop you with meeting somebody that you don't know right away. I mean, I don't teach a mind reading course. You're not going to know right away that person has things going on until you start having a conversation with them. But I
Mhm.
told you once you engage them, once you start to get to know somebody, and you start to see that that person is not a good fit for you, it will literally be impossible for them to draw it out or continue to
Mhm.
waste your time and energy. It's literally impossible with some
Right.
of the tools that you have. So
Mhm.
and yeah. So anyway, my bottom line question: how do you feel about your future now in the relationship and life area? How do you feel about your future now as far as your ability to navigate and really move in the directions that are going to serve you and keep away people that are not going to serve you? How do you feel about your future now as far as knowing that what you're looking for ultimately is coming your way?
It's my future's bright. Like I like said, feel more comfortable. Like I can express my boundaries. Like I'll be okay. Like, this is what I need. If you can't do that, that's fine. Like, all right, I'm not gonna waste your time and you're not gonna waste mine. Same thing with life, like challenges and whatnot. Challenges, all right. bring it on. It's not going to be, the end of the world by any stretch of the imagination. It's just something to work through to get better at doing, things that I need to do to get the life that I want.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's, and like I said, like with work and stuff, caught myself certain calls and whatnot, like, oh man, like you just know what you're going into. It's like, well, I'm just going to go into a boost as much as I can because I have a feeling that this is going to be kind of crazy, but that'll just help me handle it that much better.
Wonderful. So one last question, and I think this will be actually good for you too here. Again, you're not prepared for the question per se, but I think you'll really appreciate it, and it's just very generic. If you look back at the relationships of your life, the ones that did not work out, now of course, hindsight 2020, I'm sure there are a lot of them you look back at the time was disappointing, but now you're like, thank God that didn't work out. You're like actually pretty happy about that. And that's
Yeah.
these are deep human truths. This is kind of like, again, you can only connect the dots going backwards. So that's kind of a almost cliche. But here's my question for you. Objectively, if you had the skill, the tools you have now, and you had it back then, what do you think the chances are? What do you think the chances are any of those people would have slipped past the cracks over after within 30 days? What do you think the chances are if you had these tools, this process back then, what do you think the chances are any of them would have gotten past 30 days?
Ooh, this slim to none.
Slim to none, right? And that's the best part. That's the best part. It's recognized. Like, again, I have people do the program and they're like, they do the program. They're like, oh man, if only I had known this before, you would have saved this relationship. You would have kept me from that. And I'm like, maybe not. I can't say that one for sure, but no matter what, you definitely would have fast tracked the final result, whatever that was going to be. That's for sure. I mean, I'm not an oracle, so I don't know that part, but it would definitely have fast tracked it for sure. And I had someone who graduated me, not graduated yet, but she's doing fantastic, and she's doing really well. But anyway, she was with somebody in a relationship for way over 10 years. And, of course, the very beginning of the program, she struggled with the fact that, it was a little hard for her to get past, like, I spent over 10 years with this person. I believed we were working towards something and trying to reconcile that as a blessing in her head. But when I said her, I said, well, let me ask you a question here. If you met that person this many years ago, as well as any other relationships, with the tools you have now, do you think they ever would have slipped past the cracks? And the answer, and again, you didn't know I was going to even ask you that in a way. And again, I kept it very generic. You're like, no, definitely not. And that's the beauty. The beauty is knowing it's literally impossible to repeat the same mistakes. Literally impossible. Yeah. Because when you feel great, you speak great. When you feel great, you do great. When you feel great, you make different decisions. And when you feel great, you don't have to compromise yourself. And so many people get into relationships, that they compromise where they know at some level there's certain things about that person. Not that they're a bad person, but they know they're not good for them. But they move in that direction because at some level they don't feel whole. They don't feel whole. And as you know, that's a conditioning. It's not a concept. You can say you love yourself, but do you feel fucking amazing? Do you feel fucking amazing? Because if you don't, it's not the same thing. But when you feel that, you don't have to fill in that void. There's no void to fill in. And that's what keeps you from going down those same patterns. It literally makes it impossible to go down the same path. The pattern's broken at the core. And that's what's really cool. That question I just asked you, if you objectively, if you had the tools you have now back then, would those people ever slip past the cracks? No. And that's what should give you real peace and say, you know what? I know for a fact for the rest of my life, I'll never go through that shit ever again. And hey, some people come in, some people come out. Doesn't mean people aren't going to, disappoint you or again, I can't stop you from meeting somebody who, is not maybe a good fit, if you want to call it that. But the difference is this: they can't waste your time for very long. Their shelf life is pretty limited. And that is what saves you in a very real way from having a situation where also next thing you know, you've spent years with the wrong person when you fucking knew you should never have been with them years ago. That will never happen again. And that's what gives you peace. That's a beautiful place to be. And I thought it was a really good question to ask you that one, just because I want you to also recognize as well, that's where your peace comes from. It's knowing for the first time you have a real reason to know in your heart and soul, it's impossible for you to go down that same track anymore. The pattern's broken.
Yeah, for sure.
Pretty cool, right? All right. So last question then. To anyone who is considering doing this course, if you had someone you were speaking to that was like considering going to like a run-of-the-mill cookie cutter counselor, knowing what you know, Is there any last thing you might want to tell them, to anyone watching this, as far as someone who might be like on the fence, as far as booking a call with me, anything like that? Anything that you think might be important for them to know?
Do it. 1,000% do
Good.
it. It's
Good.
worth every penny. Absolutely worth every penny. And like I said earlier, you said the same thing. Like, you're an investment. And yeah, I am an investment, and I chose to invest in myself.